What if our youth can grow up conscious and resilient? What tools would allow our children to be thriving and joyful? Welcome to the Growing Up Conscious Show with Kathleen Connor. So welcome back to another episode of Growing Up Conscious. I'm your host. I better get my tongue working before I start talking here. I'm your host, Kathleen Connor. And I'm really excited about today's guest. But first, let me tell you about Growing Up Conscious. So after raising two young men and teaching as a special educator for over 25 years while training in consciousness and energetic body work, I created this podcast for people ages 2 to 202, or maybe we can go to 302 now, right? Who are engaged in creating a conscious, aware, joyful life and living. And one of my targets for the show is also for youth to have tools at a younger age to consciously create the life they desire, which is why it's so interesting to interview my special guest today, because she was aware of some special gifts at a young age. So today my special guest is Inelia Benz. Welcome.
Hi.
It's great to have you on. And I personally have been following Enlightenment for probably over 8 years now. I was trying to calculate it before I did the show. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but now kind of more intimately, because I'm in a community called Walk With Me Now, that Enlightenment is like a big part of, let's put it that way, in that creative, not like a co-creator in that community, let's put it that way. But I also love her books and her tools. So sometimes you can learn things by reading a book that's written kind of like a fictional story in a different way. So I love her books and all of her courses. And I'm going to read some things about her so that you get a little bit of her background that I like from her website. So this is her speaking. Speaking about herself. It didn't take long after birth for Inelia to become conscious and aware of why she had been created on Earth as a singular consciousness. It was to make the human collective and entire sentient consciousness of the planet's creatures vibrate at a higher level than what it was doing at the time. She didn't know how to express this mission as a tiny child, so she would often tell people that they needed to buzz better and that the human collective needed to buzz better, making a B sound with her lips as she tried to explain what they needed to do, which is so sweet. Of course, this type of advice coming from a tiny tot didn't get much attention, and the adults and kids around her completely ignored it. Then jump ahead into her, an adult and doing the marriage and kids and trying to be normal. And she said, emulating normal on this planet was no more than a trap, and didn't do anything to further the work that she and billions of other light workers, yes, you, came here to do. In January 2010, she received a request from Source to go public as a person in order to promote the message of empowerment and sovereignty to the masses, and she became a messenger of personal and global empowerment. So over the next decade and counting, she has worked tirelessly to explore, investigate, develop, and spread tools, including meditations and exercises and books, which I love, that were quick, mystery-free, I love that part, and highly effective. Tools used by millions of people to achieve personal empowerment, and in so doing, to contribute to the goal of raising the vibrational frequency of the planet. So, wow, thanks so much. And what would you like to add about yourself before we go into questions? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, you covered it really well.
Okay, great. There's so many things to talk about, but for me, I think this idea of people, we're going to use the word light workers in this particular conversation, and people might interpret that different ways, but I would interpret it as the people that are here to expand their awareness and to contribute to expanding of consciousness on the planet and for Gaia and for Earth. anything you want to add to the definition of light worker before we jump in?
Yeah, to me, like a light worker is actively working towards raising their frequency and creating a world that is humane and natural rather than inhumane and unnatural. So they're actively working. There's a
Yes.
lot of light beings on Earth, and for me, the difference between a light being and a light worker is that the light being just like surfs along or rides along on somebody else's train, while the light worker at some point in their life will take charge of their life and take responsibility for their frequency and the emotions and thoughts and everything that they're doing and all the things that they engage in. That would be the difference to me. They're actively working to do that.
Yes. Well, that goes so perfectly into the topic that we wanted to talk about today. The topic we wanted to talk about today, essentially, well, when we talked about it ahead of time, is this idea of that light workers do need to kind of wake up, take responsibility, and actively participate in what you could call raising your frequency and keeping your attention on that. And after the last couple of years, we can see how important that is.
Yes.
And that's one thing I've used Enelia's courses and books for, because that, you know, she has Ascension 101 and a lot of different things on her website that are really helpful, like practical tools. But then also her books are really helpful for me that way as well, because just reading things that expand your awareness kind of get you into this like, whoa state, right? So in that line of questioning, what are some of the things that tend to bog down the light workers, the people, whether they're light beings or light workers? What tends to like bog them down and kind of, what are some traps that they fall into that you notice?
Well, traps. I think the biggest one is fear. A lot of people might say they're not necessarily afraid for themselves, but if there's a fear that something will hurt another, that's even stronger sometimes. And that can be easily hijacked.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's why one of the first things that I put out there into the world in 2010 was the fear processing exercise, which I developed some years earlier through my own experience. And that, to me, if you're going to do anything to that one, and the full text is available for free on the internet. And to me, like the last time I looked, yeah, I'd say fear, because if you trace all the other negative engagements we might have, whether it's rage or jealousy or despair, all of these things, if you scratch a little bit, they seem to go to fear of something. So fear of, like with rage, it's like defense, like it's an extreme defense reaction. And when you defend, when you're fearful of being hurt or somebody else being hurt. And so I would say if you're going to do anything at all, is to process your fear.
Yes, I agree. The one part of the fear processing exercise that I learned from you that I use for a lot of things, not just fear, but anxiety, stress, is that whole idea that you can put in a word, like you can use like fear of, let's say, fear of not making enough money this month. You're welcome here. Because I was so good at resisting it, like just pushing it away, because that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But then I used so much energy for that, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that
So,
was so helpful.
and the other thing is what you resist persists. Yeah.
Yes.
So of course, there's more to the exercise than welcoming it, right? There's a lot more to it. And I have to mention
Yes.
that because I've noticed that through, even with students that are quite established and have learned a lot of the classes and courses that I do, they were just doing that part, just welcome it. And it's like, that was it. And of course, it's a lot more involved. There's a lot more
Yes.
steps to do. And it's basically breaking through that resistance and allowing the whole thing to express. And therefore it no longer persists. It's been expressed. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'll see if I can easily put that in the comments for the show, other than your website. I'll see if I can easily put that in for people to access as well.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
fearprocessingexercise.com, maybe.
okay, that should make it
I
easy to
think it
find.
might be that. You have to check.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Another thing that I hear you talk about a lot that's been very helpful for me is, well, one thing I'm thinking in particular is getting out of like the savior victim mode, where so many times light workers, like you were saying, sometimes they even have fear for other people or taking care of other people. And so then we get into trying to like save people or offer the things, like we found some great things that work and we want to share that with people we know. But can you talk about how that can actually be a trap for us?
Um, I would refer to individuals who might have heard of codependent relationships, right? And that's a typical light worker trap. I mean, I found a lot of them that fall into that pattern because it pulls at all the strings that a light worker might have. You know, they want the best for the other person. They don't want to upset them. They really believe and they think that they're delicate and they can't, you know, express properly, and they're very rarely going to tough love situations. And so, yeah, one of the very big traps of the victim savior part of the victim aggressor savior martyr cycle would be the victim savior. And I remember when somebody said to me, "Oh, so you mean that if somebody falls into a pool and they can't swim, you can't jump in to help them?" Right? And I'm like, "Well, no, that is a life-death situation. That is actually the proper expression of savior when you go in because it's an emergency, right? And you can't really equate that to a person who, let's say, comes to you for 20 years abusively and then says, "Oh, it's because I was abused as a child. And, you know, if you love me enough, I'm going to get better, you know, please
Yeah.
forgive me. I'll never do it again." And then they do it again and again and again. And then you're stuck.
Yes.
And also,
Yeah.
it can be very, very distracting. Yeah, the very distracting. We're in a something called a light dark paradigm, which means that the humans in this so-called earth would be geared to have dark experiences, and by dark experiencing I mean low frequency experiences of fear, desperation, suffering, depression, enslavement, torture, cruelty. Those energies are not natural to the human collective, right? So we decide as a collective to play those.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like that's why we can fall into that type of cycles, because we're not really good at playing those type of games, you know.
Right. Yeah. 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 And I know I get stuck with not wanting to hurt somebody's feelings, but then I'm not taking care of myself. It's like I don't put myself in the equation when I'm trying to take care of somebody else, which doesn't
Yeah,
work well.
yeah, that goes straight into the martyr part, right? So it's very
Yeah.
easy to go from the savior to the martyr. Like a lot of my students at the beginning, I would say, when they were, I would hear the way they were treating themselves, yeah, and the sacrifices they were doing, or the martyrdom they were going into, or even the way that they were behaving during the day. And I would say, okay, so do you have a child, like a kid? Yes. Would you do that to your kid? No, right? If they didn't have a kid, do you have a pet? Would you do that to your pet? No, I wouldn't. That's horrible. Says, okay, so if they don't have a pet, do you have a plant? Right? Or if you saw somebody in the street, would you treat them that way? No, no way. So exactly. So now I want you to treat your body and yourself in the way that you would treat somebody like anyone else on the planet. And that would change things a lot. It's amazing how, the martyr energy pops in so easily.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So that's been a great one for me to kind of keep unraveling and looking at where I'm choosing that. And then the other piece, well, there's so many, but that aspect of these days, there's what people call the mainstream media, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's all these alternative medias, and there's all this different info. Like when I was growing up, I didn't have that much information coming in from all different places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where these days there's all this information coming in, so you really need to have a sense of like truthing things and um, making things not just because you hear it. Like it's so easy to get caught up in a battle, let's put it that way. It goes with that like kind of like warrior energy of like, I'm gonna fight for the good, instead of actually going like, do I using my energy this way, is it useful for the future I'd like to create? Because you can get caught up in this versus that on almost all different levels, right? So instead, that aspect of truthing things and actually asking if things are relevant to you has been helpful to me. So is there more you can say about that in regards to what you're aware of?
Yeah, there's a lot of light workers who are also like warriors, and they have a lot of fight in them, right? And I was one of those individuals. And when you're in a like that paradigm, you're in a kind of war, and you're going to battle, you're going to war. But in 2011, when we had the original decision as a human collective to split, I was guided that I wasn't to involve myself in battle anymore. Because when you go to battle, all you're feeding is a light dark paradigm.
Yes.
And why would you do that? So again, it can be misinterpreted, because what I said wasn't misinterpreted a few times. Individuals saying, do you mean we can't be activists then? If something we see a wrong happening on the planet, we can't go out there and go take them to court, or it's like, can't we just defend the innocent? Or is that what you're saying? And I said, no, you can still be an activist, but here's the trick. If you're an activist and you're going with rage and anger to battle, you're going to lose, and you're going to feed the light dark paradigm. So my suggestion was, process all your fear, and you use the fear process and exercise. You can change the word fear to rage, anger, frustration, right? All of those energies. And once they're gone, you can go and do that. You can take them to court. You can become an activist from a different energy, an energy of wholeness, of knowing where the results that you want to create are, and defending from a place of integrity, not rage or anger or frustration. And I found that a lot of the hardcore activists did that I knew. And the results were incredible, right? They're like, whoa, I never knew that was even possible. They even had resistances to release the rage, because they thought if they didn't feel the rage, they wouldn't go to battle. But that wasn't it at all, right? It's like, I don't know if you heard of the art of war and other things, of people who have studied, or a lot of war or warrior kind of practices. And I know it's mentioned in a lot of movies also, that if you lose your temper, you've lost. Yeah. And yes. It's in a larger scale. If you go to battle in rage or enraged, then you've lost. And even if you manage to win a case, or let's say you're protesting somewhere, and even if you manage to do that, all that time in that rage and battle, us versus them, you've been feeding the light paradigm so strongly that you may as well have lost.
Yeah, so that I remember years ago, it was some kind of class I was taking where they had us play rock, paper, scissors against other people in the class, right? And from a way to just notice what feedback you got when you did that. And in order to be successful with it, I had to get in this really neutral state. So it's what you're talking about, right? Even with rock, paper, scissors, where I didn't have any other than the fact that once, if you lost it, then you had to lay down and you were done with that game. I didn't have any like strong incentive. It was more just like, what kind of feedback can I get from doing this? And I noticed how I was much more successful when I could just have barriers down and be really neutral. So I get what you're talking about with that. Yeah.
So I would go beyond neutral and I would go into joy and enthusiasm. And your natural frequency is not neutral.
Yeah,
is it?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So can you just imagine if you had been playing that game with enthusiasm and joy, right? What would the results have been? I wonder.
Yeah, because it lets go of any kind of attachment to of the results. It's more like, this is just so fun. Let's just make this really, just let's have fun with this. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that's a very
Yeah.
difficult place to get to when, let's say, you're defending somebody who's been wronged. Yeah. And it's a very hard to place to go to approach that defense or activism from a place of joy. But you can get there. You can.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting. One of the other reasons why I'm in the Walk With Me Now community, which is an international community, so we often meet on Zoom instead of meeting in person, even though I have met quite a few people in person, is this whole idea that I think I heard first from you, and that is that part of waking up as light workers and continuing to expand is not doing it alone. Like we tend, because the world can be tricky for us right now, light workers tend to especially for me right now, I work from home after working in the public arena for many years. I work from home. It's just like nice to hole up and have my own space, right? But the letting go of what's called the lone wolf, where you have to try to do it all by yourself, that's been a joyful process for me, because now, in the community, the Walk With Me Now community, I meet with small groups on a regular basis, and we have classes and all sorts of things that we do together. And it's so much more fun to practice things that I'm learning with another group of like-minded people. So is there more you'd like to say about the whole lone wolf piece?
When I was in school, I remember that the entire system from whenever you enter school at age, 3 or 4 or something?
Yeah.
Until you finished, was teaching you to work alone, surrounded by people, but alone. And don't you dare share what you know with another, right? And don't you dare look at another's for an answer. And you better get good grades, and that's on you. And if you don't get good grades, that's too bad. Yeah. And so for most of my school career, it was like that. And then when I was in high school, and I often talk about my high school because it was a pretty good high school, actually. It was before Thatcher destroyed the educational system in England. So, and it had just stopped transferred to being like a government school from a private school. He had been a grammar school, and then he transferred over to being a comprehensive school. And we were in the first or second years of them being a comprehensive school, but they still behaved in a grammar type school manner. I remember the first time that I went to a class, I don't know what it was. It could have been physics, I think. And the teacher, the whole curriculum was separated into work that you did on your own, and then work that you did in a group. So she would post a question, or it could have been mathematics. I don't remember, but it was one of the sciences. She posed a question and she put it on the table, and there was a group of 6, 7 kids that had to figure it out and get the really good answer. And then everybody would copy that really good answer that everybody worked out and put it into their notes, right? And as the answer. And to me, that was radical. That I'd never experienced that, right? And I was like, how does that even function? How does that even work? And I noticed that because it was, I think, the first year there or second year, I can't remember. We're all very young. And a lot of the kids didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to function as a group. So we had to figure that one out first. And to me, it was very frustrating because I could hardly speak English at the time. So I couldn't communicate very well. But because of the energies that we carry, like the way we hold ourselves and everything else, we all sat down in this round table. It was round, and they all look at me, and it says, "Okay, Inelia, what do we do?" And I'm like, I can hardly speak English. Go away, you can figure it out. Right? But I couldn't understand, and this happened over and over again through the years until eventually I figured it out. And I thought, okay, so there's something within the group dynamic that is somebody needs to take lead. It doesn't mean that they do all the work and give all the answers or teach us the rest, but it's basically like a take lead of something. So I started doing that, and it was a really good education, but it also taught me, because we were talking about the like that paradigm, it also taught me that groups would only last a short time before they got corrupted. And it was a mess after that. And that was the time, right? So part of the education that we've had is work on your own. And then even if you get into a group, it's going to get corrupted. So why bother? And then we're going to work, and work's the same. Here's your things that you have to do, figure it out, right? And even though you're surrounded by other people in a company or organization, it's up to, you have to figure it out on your own. So that education goes on, and then we're told, okay, so raising your frequency and enlightenment, you can't do it on your own. And if you do it with others in a right dynamic, in a correct dynamic, you're going to get way, way better at whatever you're doing or learning than you would on your own. So one of the biggest challenges we've had at Walk With Me now was figuring out a way in which groups can function. And we studied the consensus model, and it was so good, and it worked really well with all of us, Lightworkers, that we decided to adopt it. And that's how pretty much Walk With Me now functions in the consensus model. And all the small groups and everything, and it's always like, who's going to take lead? But that doesn't mean they're the boss, because, there's a lot of items around consensus that equalizes. It's not a democracy. It's not the bullies win,
Yeah.
Whoever gets 1 extra point wins. It's not like that at all. There's a lot of discussion and learning and taking each other's into consideration, and nobody's forced to participate if they don't want to in a decision, and all these type of things. So moving out of that lone wolfiness, why have we been such lone wolves? To me, is because being in groups was painful, and being surrounded by others who are in competition or just not part of that aim, or they don't get us, or they don't understand us, or whatever's, and the group corrupts. It's just painful for a light worker. And I know that I approach all groups very carefully and with all my barriers up. Yeah. And I think that's natural for us because we've been burnt so many times. So people, when they come in to walk with me now, there's a few things that we've heard. I remember one guy, he said hi because we have a forum, and then a ton of people, and then the chat, we have a chat channel too in Telegram, and tons of people said hi, tell us more about yourself and this and that, genuinely interested in this person. And he was like, whoa, I mean, I've been in so many groups in my life and this has never happened before. Usually when I say hi, it's like crickets. Nobody cares. And that was just one difference, right? People pay attention and they are interested. Somebody interesting came in, and that's the level we function from. Somebody just super interesting just came in. Let's see what they're at, who they are, and all about them. Let's hear all about them, it was funny because he was just there to scan and see. He was doing research on groups, and he wanted to set up his own group. I think he was a teacher of some sort, a spiritual teacher, and he wanted to know how to do a really good group. And then after he learned everything, how to function as a great group and work with me now, he left and started his own, So it's like, it's fine, because what happens is that all that thing that we're creating in Work With Me Now to function and know how to function as a group, because it's not something I've invented, it's something that the group has to create and invent. All of that then is getting passed on, and most of the people in Work With Me Now are actually teachers and leaders in their own right. And then everything they've learned and they learn or they develop in Work With Me Now then gets taken out into these other areas of society. Yeah. So it's pretty awesome, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Stepping out of the lone wolf.
Yeah. And also it also gives us space for in this reality that's for lack of a better word, if you're talking about things like raising your frequency or developing your mystical skills or using the word magic or any of that, then there's a lot of people that are just going to think you're a bit nuts too. So having people that you can speak openly to about, hey, these things that we're all aware of, but we can't necessarily talk to everyone about without, being judged. Like you're allowed to kind of have that space to do that and to practice those things, which is fun too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Although I would kind of wind a little bit behind what you just said, since a lot of people will react in a way, like you're nuts, or I don't remember the words that you actually used.
Yeah. Sorry.
And my response to that is, however people react towards us, especially their unconscious reactions, reflects two things. One of them is if they affect you and it makes it controls your actions, then it's your ego that you need to heal there, right? You need to heal your ego. And if they're reacting and insulting you, but you're just not reactive to it and it doesn't really matter, then it's telling you about them more than it does about you. It gives you a lot of data and information about them. So it's like, oh, okay, so I know this person where they're at the development of awareness and their belief systems and all the other. And not from a bit like patronizing them, but it's in a level of understanding. Yes. And then you see the why. Why are you talking to this person? And often these people that we might think are so many of them, they might be workmates or they might be family, friends, right? Occasionally there'll be a stranger in the internet. Trolls, they're called. They just want to bug you so that they can engage you and distract you. They feed off that, right? But regularly is somebody that is in your life, gives you a lot of information, so that now you're armed with that information to know how to engage them at a high frequency way. So you know how to talk to them, you know how to respond to them, you know that talking about these things with them is just going to trigger them, right? And if you're a little bit of a troll, then you would do that and have a good laugh, yeah. But if you're not, then you talk about other things. You can talk about the weather, or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, to some degree, this whole idea of expanded awareness, people could have different points of view about what that means, but expanded awareness does include the people around you. And like you said, so you get an awareness of a person around you, just be in gratitude to have that awareness, that feedback from them.
You're very close to the gratitude for nasty things, which you should never do. If you're grateful for nasty things, you're going to get more nasty things. This is how the universe works. So you're very close to that line. Are you feeling gratitude for this abuser that is insulting you, calling you nutter? No. Why would you be grateful for that? You literally just take the data, the information, and you use it as you want, but don't add gratitude there, because then you're going to get more of the same. You're telling the universe, lovely, thank you, yes, I'll have some more of this. You don't want to tell the universe that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to consider that. Just that right. I mean, that's a great way to put it. I can't say it better than that, I think, because that's a great way to put it. The other thing that I've been doing more of since I got in this community is what I guess I don't always want to use the word meditation, because that also can, like, for some people, meditation means different things. Like, I prefer often using guided meditation to help my brain. Like, so I use some of your guided meditations. I also use Jody Spencer, because he has this way of slowing down his voice, and it kind of slows down my brain so that I can be like, it just naturally gets me into this altered state, right? You use some things like numbers or walking downstairs and various different things, but can you speak a little bit to the benefit of going into altered states that way every day?
Well, I can't really talk about Jody Spencer because I'm not familiar with his work. So,
right,
but I
you don't have
can
to
talk
about
about. So we're still in a light dark paradigm, okay, and we're not naturally dark individuals. We're not naturally in fear. We're not naturally in jealousy. We're not naturally in despair or depression. Those are unnatural states for us. Okay, so I always suggest that people do. I mean, if they do nothing, it's really not very supportive. It's like going through life without drinking water. Okay, and you're going to get really dehydrated, and eventually you're going to shrink and die if you don't drink water. And so for me, whether you use meditation, guided meditation, contemplation, altered state of awareness, sitting in peace or silence or mindfulness, there's a lot of words that people are using these days. To me, it's very important that you do it at least once a day. If you come from zero, then I do have a 5-minute meditation you can do throughout the day at work. So, and there's also a 5-minute relaxation exercise you can do. And I did them because I lived in a city, and a lot of the people that I knew were working. I did these many years ago. So these are 5-minute meditation and relaxation exercises. So if you've done nothing, at least do those. But ideally, you would do minimum 20 minutes of something, minimum. And ideally, you do like 2 or 3 hours. And why am I saying this? Is that what does it do to you? It's almost like pulling you out of the fog of the light dark paradigm, of the battle, and out of the fear of the human collective that is being pumped into the human collective so strongly right now. And it gives you that respite. It gives you that peace. And that's your natural states. It allows you to express your natural states, which is highly high frequency. And then after you're done, you come back and do your thing. And if you think, oh my God, I can't even do 10 minutes. How am I going to do 3 hours? Are you kidding me? 3 hours, you know? And I have to say, a lot of people, if I say, oh, you know, like Netflix binging, how many hours do you spend Netflix binging, right? Or YouTube binging, or whatever's, or even surfing the internet. How long do you spend doing that? So it's not that long, really, and you don't have to do like 3 hours at the same time. If you take that 5-minute one, you can do it multiple times during the day and get it done. You know, you really can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
prioritizing.
yeah, it's like drinking water. It's that oasis. And when you first begin, it's hard, yeah. Because all the things, the battle, you're in the middle of it, you know, all these energies and feelings and emotions and the psychic noise, which I call, you know, especially if you live in a city or in a valley, there's a certain altitude on Earth. There's a certain altitude where above that is a lot more quiet. The psychic noise is not as strong. And if you lower, it's more strong. Again, and then let's say if you're in water, in your ocean or a river or lakes, the psychic noise is less. The water seems to do something to it and lower it. So it's like you take yourself, if you're, most of us, most people live in the valley, you know, like a lower below that altitude on Earth. And we just need to pull ourselves out of it at constant times during the day, and at least once a day. And if it does feel really overwhelming to you, just do the 5-minute one. Is perfect. Do the 5-minute relaxation, and then you can follow it with 5-minute meditation, or just alternate during the day, or just do it once a day. It's fine. But that starts you. It kickstarts you up into more, because it's going to be good. Even the 5 minutes is going to be really great to take you out of that psychic noise.
Yeah, for me, also walking in the woods can really help with that too, because it's kind of separating me from people to some degree and that noise as well. So yeah, I get that.
Which is funny, because the separating people is not actually accurate. You're separating yourself from the psychic noise, but you can do it with other people. And if you were to physically sit down in meditation with other people, it's a lot easier and much more strong and powerful, because there are other people around you. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And so if you went to the woods with other people that were in the same mindset, it's way more powerful than if you went on your own.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, I had a friend with me yesterday, and I did it. Yeah, it helped shift some energy, this kind of restless energy I had. So
Yeah,
it was nice.
And of course, you know, you're going with the same intent. We're going to meditate in the woods. We're going to connect with nature. Because if one of you goes in to have a chat about their husband, and one of you is going there to meditate, it's not going to work out very well. Right? So that's why group intent is really, really powerful, and
yes,
something to step into.
yeah, I agree. The other thing I wanted to touch on is this idea, like different people address it different ways, but I like the people, some other people that talk about meditation, kind of, I've seen some people that meditate kind of just get out of their body and go into what they call bliss and everything. but then they almost don't include their body in that, not so you talk about like enlightenment and consciousness, whatever word you want to use, you can fully include your body in that. So can you speak a little bit about that?
First of all, I like to separate the word enlightenment from the word meditation. Okay? They're not the same thing. They don't have the same roles, and they don't have the same results. A person can become enlightened at the checkout desk of Walmart. There's a very well-known case of a man who became enlightened while he was paying for his shopping at Walmart. And he'd never done a day of meditation in his life, or an hour, nothing, right? And there's other people who have meditated for 50 years and they're not enlightened. So that's why I like to separate what does meditation do. It takes you out of the low frequency noise so that you can go into your natural state for a while. Can that bring you into enlightenment? Yeah, it can, because everybody is also enlightened. It's just that it's covered up by a lot of stuff. So it can be a path there. Just like going to Walmart can be a path there. Yeah. Or in tantric sex, having sex with a lot of people can take you there. But it also doesn't have to, right? Otherwise, all the prostitutes in the world would be enlightened, which is not true.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like equating things with other things. An enlightened state is not something for everybody on earth. And it's people who are interested in enlightenment, people who are interested in a journey of enlightenment, and people interested in being the light, who are here on earth to embody that, being enlightened. And they can get there, or they don't necessarily have to leave that state, in many, many, many ways, many different ways. Right? We do have an enlightenment class. That's actually a tool to get you there. So it's like, that's why the first thing I wanted to separate meditation from enlightenment, because often in the West they're equated as the same thing, which they're not. They're really not. Yeah. And what was the other part of your question?
Well, we were talking about being fully embodied, because some people make it more of a priority to kind of be in bliss outside of the body instead of fully including that full embodiment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've learned, I have some schooling around types of meditation, types of practices that get you into older states of mind. And the main thing that I've learned, well, one of the main divisions between all these different practices are some that are called active meditation and then passive meditation. And what I understand is that they use different words in different cultures, but the active meditations, you're using your body to get there. So let's say you hike in the woods, you go swimming, you do Tai Chi, you do Qigong, you do yoga, you do a martial art, you do all these other things, and you get into the altered states of awareness with your body. It's very active, it's physical. You do chants. Right, you chant, you're physically doing frequencies and vibrations with your body, your lungs, your voice. So it's very active, and bodies do prefer those, actually. Yeah. And then there's the other ones that are passive, which are often teachings where you sit in a very specific state, usually very uncomfortable for your body, with your legs all twisted up and the lotus position, and your back really straight, and you have to sit there for 6-10 hours without moving. Yeah. And your body's screaming, and like you as a soul are putting your body through this to shut your body up. Yeah. And I would say, like, for some people, they are in such a body state, like their body dictates their life so much that they need to go into that extreme to be able to get any type of clarity or peace. So when somebody is like ruled completely by the body, I would prescribe one of the passive meditations where they have to sit very, very still for hours on end. If they have any type of body issue or anything like that, their body rules, I would do that. It's an extreme. It takes them to that other extreme. Once they reach that other extreme, then they can make their way to the middle again and start integrating active meditations where they allow the body to help in a very positive way. Yeah. And the same can go with the mind. Some people have a really tough time with the mind. Not their physical body, but their mind. Their mind is like the monkey chatters, like in the background. They're trying to meditate. They're trying to get peace. They're trying to see clarity. They're trying to get into an altered state of awareness, and their mind is just, and they can't. And they pull in their emotional body and all sorts of things, and it's just insane. And for them, I would highly suggest or prescribe guided meditations. There's a couple of other exercises that I used to prescribe also. One of them was the candle meditation. I think they call it the third eye meditation, where you put a candle, you light it up, and you put it like where the flame would be very, like close to where your third eye is. And then you look at the flame, and then you have to perceive every single change that the flame's doing, while imagining that you're looking at it through your third eye. That's like an imagination visual thing, right? And that one gave really good results because it keeps your mind freaking busy, really, really busy. Yeah. And then another one that I prescribe for the mind chatter, the mind body, is where you have to count or listen or like measure how many seconds the silence between your thoughts is. The words when you're thinking, I think I'm going to go to the beach after this interview. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go to the beach. Then the definitely space, going, space, do, space, the space, beach, space, and you count them, right? Or you count how many seconds in between, or milliseconds in between. Well, that one's longer than the other one. And when I told people, I want you to not so much pay attention to the word, but the silence between the words, suddenly they look at me going, there's no words there. How can I do it if there's no words? Let's say one really long one. So that's how fickle our different bodies can be. And that's why there's so many different types of meditations, because everybody's very different. There's not two people on the planet that are the same, so you can combine them to fit into your own personality or way of being, you and your body. Yeah. So again, for example, there's an emotional body, and you mentioned bliss a couple of times. So bliss is an emotional body thing, right? And because it's like extreme happiness and you feel so good, right? So that's the emotional body. And there's a lot of things about the emotional body. All these bodies are linked, right? The mental body, the physical body, the emotional body, they're all linked very closely. They're all, I would say, all physical, really. And the emotional body and individuals who are kind of ruled by the emotional body can very easily become addicted to strong emotions, whether that strong emotion is something that creates adrenaline, right, in their body. So fear or excitement or danger, they can become very addicted to that. But why? When I looked at why, it wasn't actually the thing that they were addicted to, but what came after, because the body switches on endorphins afterwards to balance the adrenaline and balance all the other things. It injects a bunch of endorphins into your body, and that's what is addictive, the endorphins. And when people go into like an altered state of awareness, and they suddenly are out of the cloud of emotions and noise. Their body and their emotional body and their mind, everyone goes, oh, it feels so good. And that feels so good is a massive hit of endorphin. And that can become addictive. And then they pursue it again, and that's what they want. That's all they want. That hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh gosh, now what do I do? It's like, so everybody, every person, they're a mixture, usually a mixture of all of these. I have had, because I've taught so many people throughout my life, I have met people who are very like on one side or one piece more than the others. And but I found that the majority of people are a mixture, and that mixture even changes from day to day. So one day their bodies will be like, I want this and I want that, and whatever, and then you can look at it and respond. Okay, I'm going to take you to the woods. Okay, we're going to go swimming. Okay, we're going to go to the Tai Chi class, Qigong class. We're going to do, and your body will be, seeing which one is going to be best. Or you can say, okay, I'm tired, sick and tired of you telling me what to do. We're going to sit for 2 hours in silent, passive meditation. Your body going to go, oh. So you go, okay, it's fine. I'm going to make sure that the temperature's right and you're comfortable. I'm not going to bend my knees in a way that's going to injure you. And you calm your body down. It's like, and guess what? This too will pass. And your body goes, well, right? And then gets into that state. But it's very personal. It's very personal which one you do, or which one really is effective for you.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you also, like, if there's somebody who's a parent listening to this and like they're raising a kid and wanting to do their best to allow them to stay in expanded awareness. You've kind of covered that each kid is going to be different. So you really have to follow what you learn about that child. Because I only had 2 sons, but they were different from each other. One was much more physical than the other. One was more mental, one was more emotional. So it's really noticing what your child requires and then
So
allowing that to lead.
So what would you prescribe to your sons now if they were 10 years old, let's say? Knowing this information, for the active boy, what would you prescribe for the active boy?
I think when I'm thinking about the more active one, I would look at where he can get some time to just take some quiet time, take some time where he, like maybe a guided meditation. That's what comes off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also depending on, because active bodies, active people, active children, you need to exhaust them first. So maybe take them, for a run first, and then say, okay, let's sit down and we're going to be quiet for a guided meditation for 20 minutes, right?
That's a good one for me, even because I think about how when I resist meditation, but if I had just gone for a run and I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to settle, it probably would
Exactly,
be
right?
easier for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about
Yeah.
the other boy, the more quiet one?
Well, the one he isn't necessarily more quiet, but he's more kind of got trained to be in his mind. He's the one that's in medical school now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he just naturally, as a child, was very heart-centered, though. It's like he got trained by this culture to be more in his mind. So something that would allow him to get more outside of his mind. Maybe it would be an active thing, like doing yoga with it or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the space between your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing for the space between thoughts, somebody who is really like mind-centered, I told them to, when they're going into these exercises, to have a pen and paper next to them, so that when something that comes up in their mind that they mustn't forget because it's so important, they write it down. They open their eyes, they write it down. Okay, I mustn't forget, the don't forget list. They write it down, and then they go back. Night and day, really, night and day results.
Yeah. I've had to do that for myself sometimes, because I don't want to be like, oh wait, I don't want to forget. Yeah. So I can actually relate to both of those, the active mind and the active body. But I can see how both would come in handy on different days and different situations. So that's interesting. Well, yeah. Well, I could talk to you for hours about about all of these topics, but we're coming up on an hour. So I wanted to see if there's anything else in particular you want to share that I didn't ask about.
No, I was actually really enjoying our conversation. So, you can go ahead and, touch another topic while we have a few minutes.
Yeah. So I guess another tool that I use that seems so simple, but in like keeping track of our bodies and like the whole idea of being aware of what your body requires, because sometimes your being is like, for instance, I love riding horses, right? But sometimes my body gets nervous about it, so we have to, that whole conversation between my like you might call your being or your soul and your body, and coming to agreements with that, like looking at what, if I am like resisting something, is it my body asking for something, or is it more my resistance from someplace else? So that aspect of keeping aware of your physical body elemental, is there something you want to say about that?
That's really something that we all go through, really. And the way that I approach it and teach people to approach it is, let's use your example. So you want to go horse riding and your body becomes nervous. The first thing I would ask is, I would close my eyes and I would ask my body, is this your fear? Or is it somebody else's or something else's? And then my body, like if you do it now, if you imagine yourself in that situation and you ask your body, is it yours or is it coming from somewhere else? What does it say?
Somewhere else.
Yeah. Now, if you go, okay, so it's somebody else or something else, it came from somewhere else, you can follow that energy line and find out what it was, right? Or what it is. And then you get some data and information. And by understanding often, you can deal with it a lot better. Yeah. So did you find it?
First thing that pops into my awareness is when I didn't ride horses when we were young, but my dad grew up on a farm, and some of my siblings rode horses like bareback. And I think my eldest brother had a scary experience. That's the first thing that popped into my awareness when you asked that.
Yeah, I was getting a familial energy line, and I kind of fear that's held by the family, because your brother's probably fine, right? He was probably got back on the horse, it didn't matter, but the family held that fear. Yeah. So
no, I don't think my brother has any desire to get on a horse. I could be wrong.
He doesn't like it. No. He actually didn't get back on after.
I think he said he had little desire to be on a horse, but I don't know if it's related to that childhood thing or not.
Okay, no, I'm talking about when he was a child, right?
Yeah.
Because people grow and they grow out of things that they do, hobbies and things. But it's like, as a child, did he get back on after the accident or no?
Not that I recall, but I'd have
okay,
to
so
ask him.
Yeah, maybe that fear, familial fear, really grabbed him, right? So that is a good way to process it, because it's in your body, your family connection, and you can process then that fear as it affects you. If something affects you, then it's yours. You can do something about it. You're not going to fix the family.
Yeah.
it will take away some of that fear from your family, but just your part, the one that you're feeding. Right. So you can do that and then see what happens next time. Yeah. And often our bodies also respond to physical things, like we're not a little girl anymore. We know what we're doing. Yeah. Are you going bareback, or you using a saddle?
I use a saddle.
Yeah. So there's another thing. I'm gonna double check the saddle here. You know, you've got them straps. See, okay, the saddle's great, and you move in and shake it, and your horse is happy, right? Do you wear a helmet?
Yeah, when I'm doing my lessons, I do wear a helmet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you shake your helmet and try and pull it out, and it's not moving. Your body's gonna be super happy. And if she's like afraid of hurting her elbows or knees, you can get pads. You know, it's like for a while my body was afraid of going on the bike, just a push bike. And I said, and every time I would look at it, she was afraid of hurting her elbows and knees. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I mean, really? Is that even possible? I don't know. Probably, maybe. I was thinking maybe your hands, you know. But really, so I got my kids, because my boys had all the pad things for the knees and elbows and things for their what's that called, the
Not skateboards.
skateboard. Yeah, the skateboard.
Yeah, okay.
So I put those on, and my body was fine. It's like, okay then. And I felt silly and all the other things, right? And my kids were making fun of me. And it's like, oh God, you know, you don't, those are not for bikes, Mom. Those are skateboards, you know, take them off. You're embarrassing us and all the things. It's like, I don't care. My body feels much better with them on. Just, oh, okay. And I also wore the ones that they wear here, this really metal hard thing that they have on the hands here for skateboarding too. So I put those on too. It was great. I never actually fell, but you know, and after a while it was fine, and I was able to ride my bike without my body getting nervous about it. So it's like a process, and you work with your body, you get the information, and then, you know, screw your ego. Yeah, you're a mom with all these kids, and you're behaving like somebody who has physical challenges or something, you know, covered in elbows and knees and hand things and a helmet and, you know, all these type of things, and your kids are running around circles around you and only wearing whatever, you know, their helmets, and that's it, and telling you that you look stupid and silly and you're embarrassing them, and the ego gets a big hit, right? But your body's feeling really good. So, and then you teach your body, see, we didn't fall. It's been a year. We still haven't fallen. Can we take off some of these things, right?
Yeah, I didn't think to ask my body that last night. I don't think it would have made a difference, but two of my friends were going out dancing in a place that was very public, and I do like to dance, but my body was a no on it, you know. And I honored that. I didn't go out dancing, but again, that ego thing of like, but Kathleen, you like to dance, but I'm like, maybe not in this setting, you know, like I can find a place where I like to dance where it actually works for me and my body.
And you can ask your body, hey, why didn't you want to dance, you know, last night? What did she say?
It's something about, and it might not have been true, but often there's loud music at live venues, and also interacting with a lot of other bodies like that has been sometimes a little tricky for me lately, you know, like whether it's what I'm picking up from them, you know, or any number of things. But, you know, I used to love dancing a lot more, but now I'm a little bit more like aware that it's not a strong yes always. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things to be aware of when we're doing these exercises is not to fall into psychoanalysis, right? And it's such a thin line between getting information so you can understand something and going all into, oh my gosh, it was all my mom's fault because blah, 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 when I was 2 years old and blah, 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 you know. It's like you can easily go there.
Yeah.
We have to be really careful not to fall into psychoanalysis when we do these exercises. Yeah.
And what I would put with that psychoanalysis is past reference points, because even though I have a lot of positive past reference points with dancing, lately I don't have as many. So it's just like really asking my body instead of going into this past reference point and analyzing it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Asking your body. And then it's like maybe your body still likes dancing, but maybe in the fresh air. Right. So find venues that are in fresh air. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so those are most of the questions I have for now. I will put your website and the other information I have in the YouTube, like down below, so people can find it. But is there anything else you want to share about people contacting you?
So the place where I'm available is walkwithmenow.com. So that'll be the best link if people want to get in touch with me, because that's a place where I'm making myself available to others. And we're also doing a lot of, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of explorations on how to function as a healthy group and all these other things. But yeah, if people want to contact me, that's the place to go, walkwithmenow.com.
Yeah, yeah, and I can recommend it from personal experience as well. Okay, so any other things before we wrap up for today?
Well, I'd like to thank you. This has been a really fascinating and interesting conversation. It's really, really nice to talk to you, Kathleen.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful to have you on the show. So bye for now.
Bye.